everybody. Welcome to the World of Concacaf News Desk. I am Eric Schmitz.
I'm Jonathan Sleep.
And I'm Donald Wine.
And we are here because after 118 matches, 34 teams are now down to 3.5. It took 345 goals in front of almost 1 million fans, but Concacaf World Cup Qualifying is complete, and we are ready for the World Cup. Congratulations to the nations of Canada, Mexico, and the United States of America for securing automatic bids to the 2022 World Cup. And Costa Rica looks like they've got a big game in June.
So wait, Eric, I mean, because CONCACAF only has 3.5 teams, I don't think Costa Rica is actually going. It's either Costa or Rica, because only half the team can go, apparently.
Well, I was also going to say, I wanted to, while this is a celebration, did want to pour a little out for the Ocho, or at least the Ocho as we know it. And
the Hex.
And the Hex.
All of it's gone.
Yeah, we just want to pour a little bit out, especially as we get ready for a World Cup in 2026 that is going to be in CONCACAF. And then after that expanded World Cup, the ride was incredible. And it will so sorely be missed.
Yeah, I mean, most importantly for CONCACAF, it was the first qualifying cycle that had full coverage from the World of CONCACAF podcast. So really a momentous occasion for them. But I do want to toast to never having 3-game windows again.
Yeah, here. I'll toast with my my seltzer. I'm
definitely too old for this shit. This last window, I'm still recovering. A lot of us are worse for wear after all of this, but it's we're in a good spot. It's over. It was definitely fun. I mean, if CONCACAF does anything well, it's coming up with new bullshit. So I'm excited to see whatever qualifying nonsense gets created in the future. And we'll get to 2026 when the time comes. But I think we need to talk about how this all ended, how this all shook down. The March qualifying window, the final international window of World Cup qualifying for CONCACAF. We had 3 big match days. Heading into it, we had 5 teams that were technically still alive for bids. And by the end of it, it was all pretty much a formality. So let's go through the match days and talk about everything that happened. Jonathan, let's start with March 24th. What happened on the first match day of the window?
So March 24th, we started off with Jamaica getting a 1-1 draw against El Salvador. Panama with a 1-1 draw against Honduras. Mexico with a 0-0 draw against the United States. And then Costa Rica, the lone team to get 3 points out of this, but a 1-0 win over Canada at the Estadio Azteca.
Now, Donald and I were in Mexico City. We were at the Azteca for the Mexico-U.S. game. Donald, what were your thoughts on that match?
I mean, it was interesting because that was the third time I had been to the Azteca for USA Mexico. It was obviously reduced capacity for the game. It said 40,000. They eventually upped it to 50,000, and it was a very late arriving crowd. Eric, as you know, we were in there a couple hours before the game, but most of the Mexican fans did not arrive until maybe the 10th or 15th minute after kickoff due to the fan ID situation and everything with that.
Yeah, no, I mean, there were even U.S. fans coming into the section at halftime saying they just got in. So if you did not plan properly, you were in for a wait.
Yeah, it was a long wait, even for us. I mean, I thought our entry was very smooth. We obviously had security around us the entire time. We didn't have any issues because except for the American fans, there was really nobody on the upper deck that we were sitting in anywhere near us. The closest people were 2 decks below us. So We didn't have any issues with regards to like people throwing stuff or just banter or anything like that. But everyone there was, really fun. I mean, everyone we talked to as we were walking in, they were clapping, they were saying welcome, good luck, shaking hands, high fives, pictures, everything. It was a very festive atmosphere. It's obviously, in my mind, arguably, one of the top 10 rivalries on the planet, but it was not a fierce rivalry in the sense that people were angry with each other for being there. It was there's a lot of love and mutual respect before the game and after the game.
Yeah. And I mean, that was my first trip to the Azteca. I do feel like I didn't necessarily get the full experience because there's reduced capacity. Because I mean, we didn't really have fans around us. I mean, we were in the cage up in the upper level, and we were surrounded by enough police to make sure we all behaved, and we didn't really have any hostility towards us, save for a few people who were giving us the finger after the game. But it was a 0-0 draw. Like, there wasn't really a lot of reason for anyone to be super upset. I mean, that was my first time there. It was just being in the Azteca. Like, it is breathtaking in multiple ways, like you're so far above sea level. Like, the place is so damn steep. Like, it's absurd.
It's amazing, like just how steep the incline is that stadium is. Like, I mean, being in those upper levels, I wasn't there this time, but just being in those upper levels, even as high up as you are still like on top of the action. I know for a lot of people that maybe have only, from a big stadium perspective, have been in NFL stadiums where, the further you go back or the higher you go back, the further away from the field you are. But I mean, you are on top of the action at the Azteca.
Yeah. Quick funny story. So we get in there, and I mean, the U.S. section is all U.S. fans. Like, we're all there together. No one was really like sitting in their actual seat, but they did have ushers there, and we were in there early enough that, I mean, it wasn't overflowing or anything like that. So the usher came up to us sitting in our seats and asked to see our ticket, and it's like, "Here, I'll show you to your seat." I'm like, "Okay." So we hand him the ticket, and like, we hadn't looked to see where our seats are. She's like, "Okay, up this way," and like, we start walking up the stairs. We keep walking up the stairs. She takes us up to the very last row of the building. Like, we are all the way up. Wipes down our seat. It's like, "Here you go." And like, we're 25 rows from the next live soul. And it's like,
yeah.
Why'd you take me up here? And of course,
to be fair,
yeah,
that's where all our tickets were supposed to be.
Yeah.
We got in, and we basically made an exec decision that if you're just going to give us the entire cage, we're going to sit wherever we want in this cage. So most people just kind of abandoned that, sit in the very, very, I mean, every seat that we had was in that top section, the last like 4 rows. I've never set up that high. I've always sat down closer to the edge, like to the fence. And so I think I ended up finding you. You posted up a little bit further down from me, but we basically just found seats and just kind of made do what we did.
Yeah. She walked us up there, asked for propina, for the effort. And we sat there for about 10 seconds. Like, this is fucking stupid. We're going to go back down there. So we went back down there and found much better.
I just like to think that she was just trolling with you. She's like, no, you're going to have to go all the way up here.
I mean, I respect the effort. She was just fucking with us.
She was trying to tire you out, sending them all the way up them steps.
Yeah. So not to talk too much about like being Mexico City, which my first time in Mexico City, absolutely wonderful city. Like, I want to go back and explore more. I definitely did not get enough time to go around. But the game itself, what did you guys take from the game? Because for me, I think the moral of the story is the U.S. probably should have won this game.
Oh yeah.
I mean that's the huge takeaway. I mean, I think the other thing too is if Gio Reyna would have scored on that run.
Oh my God. Yeah.
Just I know a lot of times people will make a reference to Maradona in a way that isn't deserved, but that Maisie of a run in the exact stadium that Maradona did that in 1986 is would have been incredible, but even just the run itself. But yeah, I think the takeaway is that the opportunity for the U.S. to get their first ever road win at the Azteca was there, and just unfortunately we're not able to execute and secure that.
I wasn't. Should we have won? Yes, I think we should have won. I think we had more chances. We were the better team on the night. We controlled the majority of the match, and like Jonathan said, we had more of the moments that make a winner, right? But I'm very, very happy with that draw because
for sure.
To go on the road at Azteca, again, we've never won there before, but the last 3 times we've been there, we've escaped with draws. It is incredible to say I'm happy with a draw, but that team, yeah, they could have stolen a win, but we've scored 6 times in the history of that stadium, like 6 goals in the history of that stadium. The stadium did not open last week. It did not open in 2010. That stadium's been open for decades. And
since the 1920s, almost 100 years.
Almost 100 years, 6 goals. That is a lot. And if you think about it, 2 of those goals have come in the last decade. It's hard to imagine people. I know people were really upset at Jordan Pefok and Christian Pulisic, more so Pefok because of the miss that he had. But that's the allure of the Azteca. Goals go awry, you hit post, you go wide. It's incredibly difficult to play there. It's incredibly difficult to face that pressure, even when there's only 50,000 in the stands. So I think the guys had a great effort, and while they should have won, a draw is a win, in my opinion.
Yeah. And I mean, everyone's going to point to the Pefok miss where he flubbed the shot. I honestly was more upset with Pulisic's attempt. I feel like that he was in a better position and he got a good shot and he just put it right at Ochoa. And it's just like that would have broken the game wide open. And you saw the U.S. make some late substitutions, like around the mid 80th minute, like 85. Like you could tell there was a time where like, all right, well, let's just like lock this down and get this point and get out of here. And they were able to do that. So that point put them in great position. I mean, you go get a point at the Azteca, you're in a good spot. But around that, also in that match day, Donald, do you have something else?
I was going to say, I know we've talked about this game, but I don't think that was the most important result of this round.
Oh, no, for sure.
I think the most important result was that Panama, who Eric swore on the last episode.
Yes.
He said there was no chance that Panama wouldn't win this game against Honduras at home. And somehow they managed to escape, or Honduras managed to escape Panama City with a 1-1 draw. But because of that, it really set up the U.S. and Mexico with their draw against each other to both be in great position to qualify. The U.S. especially, given that the next match day, they were set to play Panama at home. Panama had a chance to really put pressure on those two teams. And I think that was really the nail in the coffin for them. It wasn't necessarily a game against the United States. This draw at home is the one they're going to look back on and say, man, we should have gotten those 3 points.
Well, I mean, I think it was also coupled with the fact that Costa Rica got that 1-0 win against Canada. And I mean, Mark Anthony Kaye went off early in that game with a second yellow, which I know there was a lot of consternation about the fact that what he got that second yellow for seemed a bit soft, but he was lucky to still be on the field after that first tackle. The one he got his initial yellow card was a pretty nasty high late tackle. But I mean, Canada, could still down a man for 60 minutes, still controlled that game for the majority of the time. I think they had close to 70% possession and really generated a lot of shots there, but were just not able to get the goal to draw or even, seal the win. So, I mean, I think the draw against Honduras did Panama in, but I don't think many people thought, I mean, Costa Rica getting a result was not a surprise, but I think getting the win and the full 3 points was a surprise, at least for me.
See, I mean, Costa Rica, it's a tough place to play. Like, they're very good at home. They've got a very good goalkeeper. That result did not shock me. Panama not getting the full 3 points. I mean, I guess I was wrong in the sense that I said there's no way Panama is going to not win this game when it's like Panama just doesn't lose at home. And I mean, they got a result, but yeah, like I obviously didn't see any of either of these games since I was at the Azteca for the U.S. Mexico game. So I can't really comment on like how that game ended. I mean, Panama was up 1-0 and Honduras got that second half goal, and they had 25 minutes plus stoppage to try to get that winner, and they couldn't do it. And that was the nail in the coffin for Panama. I can't be too shocked at Costa Rica getting that result over Canada when Canada went in there knowing that's like, listen, we're going to lock this up. The party's going to be back in Toronto. They didn't need that game. Costa Rica needed that game, and you saw that desperation in Costa Rica this whole window and the whole last window. So, I mean, good on them for getting the result, but I can't blame Canada for that.
And also, for El Salvador had that outside chance at getting fourth place, and that was null and void very quickly after a 1-1 draw at Jamaica, which again was a tall task for them to get all 9 points, something that I believe only Costa Rica had done from a team in the hex or in the octagon, but to get all 9 points and hope that Costa Rica lost all of their games and Panama lost all of their games. That was just a tall task for them, but eventually that we didn't have to wait long for their dream to end at that 1-1 draw.
Yeah. So concluding match day 12, El Salvador was out. Panama was backs against the wall. They needed to go to the U.S. and get a win to really, truly stay alive. And match day 13 kind of solidified the race a little bit. Jonathan, why don't you walk us through the scores on March 27th for match day 13?
Yeah, so for match day 13, Canada with a 4-0 win over Jamaica. El Salvador falling with a 1-2 to Costa Rica. The U.S. with a resounding 5-1 win over Panama. And then Mexico with a 1-0 win on the road to Honduras.
Donald, you and I were both in Orlando for this U.S. Panama game. We'll start with this. Really, that eliminates Panama from World Cup qualification. What do you take away from that game other than the fact that Christian Pulisic now is pretty comfortable taking penalties?
It was electric. Like the whole scene was electric. Everyone knew. And the thing about that game is everyone in that stadium knew the results of the Costa Rica game before kickoff. So they knew that there wasn't a chance to outright qualify on that day. But everyone knew that if we put up a big enough number on the board, that the party could start to begin with caution, with caution, or what's the word? With caution is what I'm saying.
Yeah.
And I think that is, you could tell that was on the mind of the team. Team was like, hey, let's go out and take care of business. Let's take care of it immediately. And they were pushing for goals. And the great thing about that is Panama also had to push for goals because every time that they went down, they had to press forward to try and make those goals back up, to try and catch up, because they needed that win desperately. And that opened up a lot of holes for the U.S. to kind of capitalize on. But it was an electric night. We both were there. It felt like a celebration, even though both of us were kind of muted in our celebration. Other people felt that it was, a good enough score that they can celebrate as if they had qualified for the World Cup. Because when people started singing, "We are going to Qatar," at that point, it was official. Whether it was for fourth place or for the World Cup, our name was going to be in that World Cup draw at some point on Friday. It was just a matter of whether it was in the field or in the playoff.
Yeah. And everyone ended up seeing after the game, but as soon as they started dropping that banner that said qualified, that some U.S. soccer official they handed out the wrong
They forgot.
banner.
Yeah, they forgot to. Yeah.
Yeah. And it's like, you saw that. It's like, oh my God, we're going to fuck this up. We're going to fuck this up. Because as I was famously quoted after the game, Concacaf is a vibes-based economy.
Can we talk about that for a second? Can we talk about the fact that I just read the quote on Twitter. It was not attributed to a single soul. And I knew it was you. Like, without hesitation, I was like, yo, that's Eric. Like, that's not like,
yeah.
You withheld his name, but we know who it is.
Yeah, no, I saw that in a different soccer group, not a group chat, not the one, some of the ones that you and the three of us are a part of. And I was like, oh, I know exactly who said that.
Yeah.
There was no question in my mind that was Eric Smits.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, I was not able to attend, but was patiently waiting, watching a lot of these games in the lead up to kickoff of that night. The big one being that El Salvador Costa Rica game, because Costa Rica goes up first, they score the first goal, and then within a minute, El Salvador comes back and picks up a draw. And so I think going into that, was really looking forward to the fact that the potential for qualifying that night. Unfortunately, Joe Campbell scored right at the stoppage time for the first half. But I mean, El Salvador had several instances and several times where I thought they could have been awarded a penalty, but unfortunately, that just didn't work out for them. But while Costa Rica picked up that draw on the road, it was a nail biter of a draw, or a win, I should say.
Yeah. No, I mean, Costa Rica went to El Salvador. Like, going to the Cuscatlán and getting a win is not easy, but they got what they needed out of that against the El Salvador team that was done, but we are kind of bearing the lead a little bit because Canada, for the first time since 1986, they clinched a spot in the World Cup with their 4-0 win over Jamaica, BMO Field. Kyle Larin, who opened the scoring, had the game winner. He actually ended up leading CONCACAF in goal scoring in the qualification tournament, scoring his 13th goal of qualifying, 13 minutes in. And
I think that goes is that's not for the octagon. I think that's for all of
that's
qualifying, correct?
For qualification.
You get a lot more chances to score when the team has to go through the early rounds of qualifying. So
they were fortunate enough to go through the early rounds of qualifying. I would have loved some of those road trips.
Mm-hmm.
While I would have loved some of the road trips, I would not have liked the extra jeopardy involved with a lot of that. If just from a personal basis, after the scarring of the previous cycle, yeah. I
mean, it worked out okay for Canada. I mean, as we'll get to it, they had a pretty good round of qualifying. So yeah, Canada getting the big win. Congrats to all you Canucks. I hope the Molsons were flowing up in Ontario after that match.
We'll talk about it a little bit more when we get to the World Cup draw, but they got some big shoes to fill. I mean, there was a lot of trash talk from the Canadians and throughout a lot of this World Cup qualifying, and now they're going to have to go up there and back that up on the world stage.
Yeah. But going back to that US-Panama game, I do think there is some sort of karma as to how that played out, because as we know, the first U.S. goal was scored on a penalty, which was awarded via VAR. Anibal Godoy chokeslammed his boy from Nashville SC, Walker Zimmerman, his club teammate. He chokeslammed him on a corner, did not get called. In past years, and as long as we've known CONCACAF, that never gets called. That gets missed and we move on. And it's like, oh, that should have been penalty. But now we have VAR, and Panama, the team who had qualified for the last World Cup, due to not having VAR and refs just awarding goals that never go in the net and missed calls and things of that nature, now all of a sudden they're penalized for something the ref missed, and the U.S. converts, and there is justice in this world. And the U.S. was cruising from there. 2 more goals in the next 10 minutes, another penalty by the end of half, which was called right away, another blatant foul by Anibal Godoy. And yeah, the game was effectively over there.
I was definitely thinking about the VAR penalty, the very first one, and definitely thinking about the phantom goal from the 2017 cycle that literally knocked the U.S. out of the World Cup. That was definitely on my mind on the capo stand as he went to VAR. And I was like, I'm so glad that VAR is around this time. because it was definitely needed last time, and they have learned from their mistakes.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Just waiting for that ball to go out of bounds. Because he knew it was
for a split second. I mean, I had forgotten VR, but Walker Zimmerman did not forget there was VR, because the second that ball went out of bounds, he went and grabbed it and held on to it, because he knew exactly what was about to happen.
He saw the referee do the put his hand to his ear and put his hands out like, hey, no, I'm listening. And as soon as they did that, like everyone in the stands like, well, it's VAR time. Like, there's no way, we know what they're looking at, and there's no way that they're gonna say check's clear and we're good.
Yeah. No. I mean, as great minds have said, Concacaf is a vibes-based economy, and the vibes even out over time. I do want to point out that I said that. Now, after the game, we had gone back to the brewery where American Outlaws had their pregame tailgate, and we shut the place down. Touch Tunes was rocking. I was spinning the beats. It was TRL era boy bands. We were rocking out.
No musical terrorism from you that night?
Oh no. It was vibes. We were vibing. Everything was great. But that quote, that actually, I have to give credit to my friend Russ, who was with me at the game in Azteca. He made the trip to Mexico City. It was actually words out of his mouth. So I am taking full credit for it, from stealing it from him. But I do want to give a shout out to my boy Russ, from back home.
Good artist borrow, great artist steal.
Exactly, and I apparently am a great artist. So we're looking to capitalize on all of the buzz from the vibes. So be on the lookout, folks. So match day 13 wraps up, and into the last match day, the last round on March 30th. There's really not too much up for grabs. The U.S., because of goal difference, was effectively had to lose by less than 6 to Costa Rica, in Costa Rica, a place they had never won. But as long as they didn't get their ass kicked, they were going to auto-qualify. Mexico, same thing. They just needed goal. The goal difference was the only concern. If they won, everything was fine. Canada had booked their ticket. They were already drunk off Crown Royale. They were, pounding their pizzas and Tim Hortons and things of that nature, celebrating, just hanging out. Is watching Wednesday night hockey after the game if they want to. But really, Costa Rica, San Jose was like the epicenter for what was left up for grabs. So, Jonathan, why don't you walk us through March 30th, match day 14, the conclusion of Concacaf World Cup qualifying.
So the conclusion of Concacaf World Cup qualifying, Panama with a 1-0 win over Canada, Jamaica with a 2-1 win over Honduras, Mexico with a 2-0 win against El Salvador, and finally Costa Rica with a 2-0 win over the United States.
Donald, how do you feel? 2-0 result in San Jose. Like, what's going through your mind when that final whistle goes?
So I was not at the game. Eric, you were at the game. I was in Doha at this point. I would just like to point out to CONCACAF that they have several media partners, and one of those media partners is, for World Cup qualifiers and for Gold Cups and stuff like that. In the Middle East, in Qatar, they actually have a media partner. It's BN Sports in Qatar, right? Not the one that we have, that's BN Sports America, but one of the main parent organizations for BN. They have 20 channels, 20 BN channels in Qatar. 2-0.
Like 2-0?
Like 2-0.
10, like 10 and then 10 more?
That is correct. They have 20 BN channels, and not a single solitary one of them were showing any of these games. So CONCACAF, I need you to call your people in Doha and ask them what happened for this final match day, because the funny thing is they're showing games from all over the world, all the time. But when the most important region was having its most important games, they were not to be found on television. So I had to go to the internets to find this game. And really, when it comes to that, we knew they needed to lose. Like, the Costa Rica had to win by 6 for this doomsday scenario for the United States to occur. Scoring the first goal, okay, it happens. It's Costa Rica. The U.S. has never won there. Going down 2 on, I think there were 2 goals that probably shouldn't have happened. 2 lapses on the part of the U.S. I think people started freaking out. But I think at the end of the day, once we got to like the 75th minute, they were like, okay, at this point, it's just like in basketball. If you're up 30 with 3 minutes left, just hold the ball. If you hold the ball, even if you don't score, they can't either. And that's time. Like, time is of the essence. Time is on your side now. So once we got to that point, we saw the team just kind of bring possession back, kind of hold it, and make sure that Costa Rica didn't have any opportunities to go forward. And because of that, I was starting the party in my room at 6 a.m. Which was around the 85th minute. That's when I kind of felt, okay, this is about to happen. We're about to qualify for the World Cup.
Yeah. Now, because I was there, Jonathan, you were at the bar for this, correct?
Yes, I was.
What was the vibe like there amongst like U.S. fans?
I mean, it was there was a decent amount of nervousness. I mean, I think there was still. I mean, to preface, there was also a pretty big thunderstorm rolling through Nashville at the midst of all of this, and
did you guys lose video?
We did lose video at one point too. So I mean, there was which just kind of compounded everything, but there was a lot more celebratory nature of the game after the match day 13. That while there was still some residual nervousness, everybody was ready to celebrate.
Yeah. So now I was there. I was at Estadio Nacional, which, as Don, you've been there, correct?
I've never been to the stadium.
Oh, you never been to the stadium?
I've been to Costa Rica for Concacaf Champions League, but not for a U.S. Costa Rica game.
Okay. So you haven't been at that stadium.
Correct.
It's a very unique vibe there. I mean, the stadium was built. It's about a decade old. It looks very nice. There is not a lot to it. Like, there are no, like, it looks from a distance like it's like an up-to-date, like, big stadium. It does not feel like that way inside. Everything is really bare bones. There aren't a lot of concession stands. The bathrooms, like, there are no urinals. It's just troughs and stalls. It's definitely a weird vibe, but it looks very majestic. I will tell you that.
It does on TV too. Like, it
Yeah.
looked packed. It looked like the atmosphere was incredible.
Oh, the atmosphere was incredible. Costa Rica fans were very hospitable. For the most part, they were very nice. Up until the end, when they seemed very happy about beating us in a game that we didn't need to win. But as far as the game goes, like, it was very cagey. Like, Costa Rica was rolling out their B squad. They had 9 players on yellow cards. They were trying to protect from accumulation before the playoff that they would most likely be facing. And when that whistle blew for halftime and it was 0-0, it's like, all right, we're cruising here. And Greg Berhalter did make changes at halftime. He did sub out Tyler Adams, who looked like he was nursing a little bit of an injury. But I think I can almost write off the second half and the 2 goals because of that. Like, taking your top number 6 out. The team looked a lot shakier defensively. Other subs were being made, but the U.S. wasn't pressing like they needed to win this game because they did not need to do it. So Costa Rica was able to take advantage of their chances. Keylor Navas played out of his mind. Great saves. Like, anyone else in CONCACAF is in goal, the U.S. is coming home with a couple goals. That might be a 2-2 draw. But Keylor Navas is the best player in CONCACAF for a reason. He's a legend for a reason. And he unfortunately had to leave the game with an injury. But, like, that kind of performance is why Costa Rica has been such a formidable opponent for the last decade plus.
And that's why it's been, they kind of picked up where Saprissa left off as being a fortress of a place to play for anyone. I mean, they don't lose many times at home against the United States since 1986. 1986 we got a draw, or I'm sorry, 1985 we got a draw, and ever since then it's been all L's. And I think that is something that they probably can hold their heads high and say, hey, we were able to take care of business at home. But when you look back at all of World Cup qualifying for those top 4 teams, if you take the records of all of them, all the 4 teams, only one home game was lost between those 4 teams. That is why it's really just the results at the other spots that were the differences for some of these teams between being in the World Cup, being in the playoff, and being left at home.
Yeah. No, I mean, the margins were very small. And when you expand it to 8 teams fighting for 3 spots instead of 6 teams fighting for 3 spots, yeah, I mean, finishing above 500 is not enough to clinch a spot. And yeah, for the U.S., it was the best opportunity they've had to get a win in Costa Rica, which they've never done, and they didn't do it. So kind of lost opportunity there, but no one gives a fuck because the U.S. qualified for the 2022 World Cup. And as that game, like as we got to stoppage time, like it was interesting being in the crowd because everyone was kind of sad because like, oh, we're losing. Like we came all this way to see the team and they had the B squad out and we started our A squad. And why are we not winning this game? It's like, it doesn't matter. The goal is to qualify. Like the qualification, you got to look at it like it's a 1,260-minute game. You know, it's like, it's not this 90 minutes. It's all 14 games. And in those 14 games, they won. So when that final whistle went, it's like, it doesn't matter what score is. We're in the World Cup. So for me, it was a relief. It was like a weight off your shoulders. It was a celebration. Not everyone was celebrating quite as hard until we got to the hotel bar across the street. Once the drinks started flowing, the mood perked up a little bit. But yeah, this long journey is over, and I guess Mexico qualified too. So, you know, good for them.
Yeah. There was the one scenario where the U.S. could lose very handedly, but based on a Mexico, there was a result where Mexico could have found themselves in the in that final like that half spot, and you best believe that I was rooting hard for that. Because that would have been wonderful to see.
Yeah, always root for chaos. But yeah,
except for your team, chaos is great for everyone else.
Chaos for everyone else. Calm, cool victory for me. So yeah, that match day wraps up qualifying. Shout out Jamaica for getting their first home win of the Octagon. Beating Honduras 2-1. That's good for them at Independence Park. And Panama, I say they don't lose at home. Like Canada didn't need that game. Panama got the 3 points, even if it didn't matter. Panama still gets results at home. So going into the next cycle, Rommel Fernandez, it's still a fortress. So we conclude qualifying with the standings looking like this. Canada on top at 28 points, 8 wins, 4 draws, 2 losses with a plus 16 goal difference. Mexico actually tying with 28 points, same record, 8 wins, 4 draws, 2 losses with a plus 9 goal difference. The United States of America sitting at 25 points, 7 wins, 4 draws, 3 losses, plus 11 goal difference. Costa Rica tied in points, but in 4th place going to the Interconfederation playoffs. 7 wins, 4 draws, 3 losses, plus 5 goal difference. Panama missing the cut with 21 points and a minus 2 goal difference. Jamaica in 6th with 11 points and a minus 10 goal difference. El Salvador in 7th with 10 points and a minus 10 goal difference. And Honduras in 8th. 0 wins, 4 draws, 10 losses, 4 points, minus 19 goal difference. A rough go for Los Catrachos in the Octagon. So we're heading to the World Cup. And first things first, you got to find out where you're seated. So the draw for the World Cup was held on Friday, April 1st. Donald, you were there.
I was there.
About it. Tell us about it. Before we even get to what happened, tell us about being in Qatar.
Look, well, I'm just going to talk about the draw. I think I'll save some of the extra stuff for one more round if we can get to it. But the draw
Patreon
was
exclusive. One more round.
yeah. So the draw was incredible. I don't quite know how we were there, but we were there for it. We got to walk the red carpet. We were smoozing with. It's funny. One of the first people I ran into was Will Wilson, who is the CEO of U.S. Soccer, and Josh Cocone, who heads ticketing. So first of all, thank you, Josh, for all you did for us for tickets. He had to handle hundreds of thousands of tickets to these matches that we had throughout qualifying. So glad to see that he made the draw. And then steps away from them, what do you know, is Greg Berhalter just standing there right at the entrance. So I was able to say hi to him, got a picture. We talked for a little while. And then we went into
he was able to get a picture with you. Not you didn't get a picture with, it was, Greg's first chance to get a picture with the host, one of the hosts of World of Concacaf.
This is true. And to be fair, one of the guys said, why don't you get a picture with Donald? And he goes, sure. And I go, okay, well, you can use my camera since my camera was already out. But so we got the picture. We go into the hall, and the hall is just ginormous. There's, thousands of people there and dignitaries from all over the world. Former players, legends, coaches, current players, staff, federation presidents, country presidents, all these people were in this one room. And Idris Elba, who I did not get to meet, but that would have been cool. So we go to the draw. We're sitting towards the back, but I look around. Let me tell you this story. I look around, and I'm just looking at some of the people who are around me, and I look just a couple rows up to my left, and I see a guy. I go, man, that guy looks like Samuel Eto'o, but it can't be him because he's a legend, and he's the president of the Cameroon Soccer Federation. He's got to be further up, right, by where all the coaches and stuff are. Nope, it was Samuel Eto'o. He was just sitting in the back chilling. He took his mask off, and I was like, that really is him. And that's when I realized, holy shit, I'm in a room full of people for the World Cup. There is Samuel Eto'o right over there, and then there's me. One of these people do not belong in this thing, and it's certainly not Samuel Eto'o. What am I doing here? That was my big holy crap, I'm at the World Cup moment. But we go to the draw, and it was, you guys saw the draw. The funny thing is I'm responding to people texting about the draw, and I realized that I was about 3 full minutes ahead of everyone because the feed would take that long to get to American TVs. So people are like, oh, they just picked Group A, and I go, oh, guys, I'm just gonna shut up because we're already on Group E. So I'm not gonna tell you what's happened in the last 3 minutes, but you guys are way behind. So I had to wait to react to the U.S. name being called because, again, I knew people hadn't got to it yet. So I waited for everyone else to react, and then I reacted to it in our various, text chains that we have. But I think the point was this, to hear the name being called was just absolutely incredible, given, what we've been through as a country, just as a fan base throughout the last 4 years, being in Cuba, in 2017 to being at the World Cup draw and hearing that name being called, that really, I was really moved by that moment. So it was great to hear that. And then, we could get to the draw right now, but I think the draw in itself is just a spectacle. I got to meet a bunch of players afterwards, a couple of coaches. I got to see Gareth Southgate and Greg mix it up a little bit. And I tried to get in to get a picture of both of them beforehand, but I wasn't able to. So, but yeah, just a bunch of players, former players, legends, all over the place. I have some of my pictures on Instagram if you want to go check those out. But yeah, it was just an absolute whirlwind of a night, and the spectacle is there. I'm really looking forward to it being here in the United States in a few years. And I want fans, I want to push the federations of all three federations, Canada, United States, and Mexico, to make fans a part of that spectacle, because it is something to behold. And I'm really, really lucky and fortunate that I was able to partake.
Fans, yes, make us a part of that spectacle.
Media is invited, and we can go whenever capacity we need to.
All right. Well,
I'm just saying the Confederation could, pick the podcast that has been there since the beginning.
Since the beginning.
Since the beginning.
We're day one. Day one
members.
Okay. So you were at the draw. Let's talk about the draw. Let's just focus on the groups that have our CONCACAF teams. Donald, where's CONCACAF sitting for all of these groups?
Well, we have 4 groups that we can talk about because, again, since the playoffs have not occurred yet, they will occur in June. They were slotted into pot 4, so they're we know where Costa Rica, for example, will head if they were to make it through the playoffs. So I'm going to start with Group B because we're just going to go in alphabetical order. Group B is where the United States was drawn into out of pot 2. They are going up against England, Iran, and then the Euro playoff winner, which will be between either Wales, Scotland, or Ukraine. That, again, will take place in June, although Ukraine is trying to push it back even further due to the events that are happening with their war in their country.
Yeah. Jonathan, what was your reaction to seeing the U.S. drawn with England?
Inject it into my veins. I say this as someone who follows an English Premier League team, an English Premier League team that by and large the fan base hates the national team. For those that don't know, like, Liverpool fans have no affinity for the English national team. But growing up, I was around a lot of people who refused to cheer for the U.S. national team because they quote unquote weren't good enough. Even though they claimed that a great grandfather was from England, but probably couldn't find it on the map. I take a great pride in seeing England struggle, and I will take an even greater pride in the fact that the U.S. gets to be that team who hopefully beats England.
I mean, important to note, England has never beat the United States in a competitive match, ever. 1950 World Cup, U.S. win. The U.S. Cup in the 90s, U.S. win. 2010 World Cup, England was able to escape with a draw. England just can't beat the U.S.
It is also important to note that the U.S. has won more international trophies last year than England has in their existence.
Yeah. England, how many CONCACAF Nations Leagues you got? You got none. You got nothing. Yeah. So I'm really interested to find out what the Euro qualifier will end up being. I'm kind of pulling, like, Ukraine will be like the Cinderella story for everybody. As an American fan, I don't want any part of that. They're gonna
neither do I. Neither do I.
Like, we're talking about vibes. I don't want to even be in the position where we have to worry about, like, oh, we got to be the assholes and beat Ukraine. I don't want any of that. So give me Scotland. Scotland I can deal with. Wales I'm not too worried about. Honestly, getting drawn with Iran, that made me the most uncomfortable, just by the sense of there's the history there, there's the politics there, and Iran is good. Like, they're one of the better, more competitive pot 3 teams, and they're going to be a tough out, and that'll be the 3rd game for the U.S. Yeah, I'm very confident the U.S. can get through, but
I knew we were going to get England. I was, I was in a group with a bunch of fans from around the world, and ironically, the only group that had fans, all the teams, all potential teams represented, was Group B. We had a couple English. It was me. There was a person from Iran, and there was a guy from Scotland. So we had a nice picture afterwards. We're all talking, but we had all predicted that this was going to happen beforehand because we knew that playing England on Thanksgiving or Black Friday, which it'll eventually be Black Friday. We knew that was something that it felt like the ping pong balls will be heated up or frozen, whatever, in a way that would happen. And then Iran, like you said, the history of that 1998 and just the geopolitical history. I think it'll make for storylines here in the United States. I don't think it'll be as big of a storyline around the world, but it definitely will play here in the United States.
Yeah, for sure. So that's Group B.
Yep. I want to continue with Group C because our neighbors to the south, Mexico, are in Group C. They have a pretty difficult draw. They draw Argentina, Saudi Arabia, and Poland. They open up against Poland. and then they will have other match days against Argentina and Saudi Arabia. So I think Mexico, they may feel good about this draw, but Argentina, very, very good. Poland, very strong. And Saudi Arabia is one of those sneaky teams that have been playing very well in Asia.
Yeah. I was just gonna say, like, the Poland one, that draw really depends on it. It's gonna go with how Robert Lewandowski plays. I mean, I think that Mexico is a much like the US. Actually, I would say Mexico gets a little more respect on the global stage. But they're still going to, I feel like a lot of these European teams are going to look past them, and going to be in for a shock when they play against them.
Yeah. I mean, Mexico, it's just a tough draw for like where they ended up getting seated in that third spot. So they've got Poland first and then Argentina. They could be, that last game against Saudi Arabia might not mean anything to them. It's kind of a tough draw. What's next, Donald?
So we'll go down to Group E. E is an echo, where Costa Rica is in the Interconfederation playoff against New Zealand. That will take place in June in Qatar. If they win that, they will go into Group E. In Group E, joining them would be Spain, Germany, and Japan. So Costa Rica, I'm very, very sorry, because that is a very, very, very tough draw. If there is a group of death in this World Cup, it is Group E, because you have two very strong teams who have won World Cups before in Spain and Germany, and Japan, who has made multiple quarterfinals and semifinals and has just been a very, very strong team at several World Cups.
Yeah, I mean, Keylor Navas, good luck,
And he's done it before too. They've ridden. I mean, Costa Rica has ridden a hot Keylor Navas to a quarterfinal. So this group is really going to be interesting.
Yeah. Jonathan, you got anything on this group?
I mean, it's a tough one. I mean, there's no in a vibes based economy. The vibes are going to be hard to come by here.
Yeah.
All right.
So the final one.
Good luck to the Ticos there.
Yeah. So the final group that we have is Group F. It actually syncs up very well. B, C, E, F. But F is where we see Canada. And Canada will be joined by Belgium, who is one of the top teams in the world, Morocco, and Croatia. Croatia, again, was in the 2018 World Cup final. They lost to France, but most of that team, while they're 4 years older, are still going strong, and they breeze through qualifying in Europe. So again, Canada, Jonathan alluded to it earlier. They've been talking a lot about how they're back and how they are on the scene. They are going to have to prove it in a big way in a very difficult group for them.
Yeah, I mean, Canada, you think you finishing top of qualifying means you're the best that we have to offer? Well, congrats. Go beat Belgium, man. You open up against one of the best teams on the planet. I mean, I was gonna say, it's like the group. They could get out of it. Like, Croatia is not what they were 4 years ago. Morocco is a team that they can beat, and Canada can be competitive. But I mean, they're gonna have to be hitting the ground running for sure.
And I think the other thing to note is the fact that lost the final window qualifying to Panama. Had they won that, there was an opportunity for them to sneak into pot 3, which could have made this a bit easier on them. But they unfortunately were just not able to get that done on the road to Panama.
For sure. All right. Any other thoughts on the draw?
No, I'm really looking forward to this World Cup. It's going to be a very, very interesting. I think there's a lot of good games that we can see in Qatar. And starting from the first day, I think it's going to be a very interesting one, how it plays out. Depending on who makes it out of these group stages, you'll have a lot of strong second round and quarterfinal matchups. So I think that's the idea here. That everyone was drawn into a group that's pretty strong, but there's no easy group and there's no group that is supremely difficult. Everyone is going to have their work cut out for them.
Yeah. And we will have a lot of coverage of the World Cup leading up to November. Also, shout out to the schedule makers for giving the U.S. those late start times for the group stage. Bless you. We appreciate that. It's going to be a spectacle for sure. So that wraps us up. We're going to have more content for you coming soon. Make sure you're following us on social media. We're at Concacaf, Concacaf, Twitter, Facebook, Instagram. Support us via Patreon, patreon.com/Concacaf. You can go there, subscribe, and listen to our One More Round podcast that's exclusive that we'll be recording after this, and talking more about everything that's going on in CONCACAF. So thanks for tuning in. Tell your friends, and vibes up.